prepares for an extended strike on Iran if negotiations fail.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said in his televised address this morning that the U.S. should know Iran is not one to surrender.
The president asked me that this morning, and I don't want to use the word frustrated.
U.S. Air Force F-35s have been leaving RAF Lakenheath, believed heading to the Middle East as tensions continue to escalate.
Those words were recorded just days ago, but here's what nobody is connecting this morning. It stopped being a warning. It is happening right now. Reports began flooding social media in the early hours of this morning, unverified, fragmented, but impossible to ignore. Multiple independent sources are describing what they believe to be a coordinated, full-scale U.S. military operation against Iran, waves of airstrikes, naval forces moving aggressively into the Persian Gulf. And something that hasn't been confirmed officially yet, but is being whispered across every intelligence channel, cyber systems inside Iran going completely dark. Oil markets didn't wait for a press conference. They reacted instantly. Prices spiked in early trading, a market signal that traders who watch these things for a living believe something real has started, and Iranian state media, which never admits weakness, has already issued a statement. They are calling it aggression. They are vowing what they describe as decisive and overwhelming retaliation. Now, to be clear, no U.S. official has confirmed a strike as of this recording, no Pentagon statement, no address from the Oval Office. But here's the thing, and this is critical, everything you're about to hear from the past 72 hours was already pointing exactly here. The buildup, the delegated power, the succession plans, the hot mic, the 32,000. This didn't come out of nowhere. This was the end of a very visible road, and almost no one was paying attention to where it led. Let's go back, because to understand what's happening this morning, you need to understand what was built to make it possible. The UK Defense Journal called it, and I'm not exaggerating here, the largest American military buildup anywhere since the Gulf War. Those are not the words of a pundit. That is a senior defense editor documenting aircraft by aircraft, ship by ship, exactly what the United States quietly positioned around Iran over the last several weeks. On February 16th alone, 18 F-35 Lightning fighter jets were repositioned toward the Middle East from Royal Air Force Lakenheath. With them came KC-135T Stratotankers, the aerial refueling stations that allow American jets to stay airborne indefinitely, and E-3G Sentry surveillance aircraft feeding real-time intelligence back to commanders. The next day, February 17th, more F-16C Fighting Falcons moved into position, half a dozen F-22A. Raptors, more tankers, more electronic warfare aircraft, and on the naval side, the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group was confirmed already positioned in the northern Arabian Sea, 90 aircraft on that carrier alone, F-35Cs, Super Hornets. E-18G Growlers designed specifically to jam enemy radar and communications, Seahawk helicopters for destroyers running alongside, and that wasn't all. The USS Gerald R. Ford, a second carrier strike group, was en route from the Atlantic, bringing 3 more destroyers and another full air wing into the equation. Military. Analyst Preston Stewart said something that now sounds like prophecy. He said, "Right now, the buildup there has not stopped. It is continuing, and there's nothing like this that I can remember." He was right. But even he may not have anticipated how fast the clock was actually running. Roughly 40–50% of America's entire deployable air power was concentrated in this one region. To put that in context, that is comparable to the total air power the United States used during the Iraq wars, and history has a very clear record on what happens next when America deploys that kind of force. It has never, not once, assembled a package this size against a potential enemy and not launched strikes. Iran's leadership knew this, and that's where the story gets even darker. Here is the detail that should have stopped everyone cold but was buried under the noise of troop numbers and aircraft counts. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, 86 years old, facing the largest U.S. military force assembled against any nation in a generation, quietly handed power to someone else, not publicly, not with a press conference, behind closed doors. According to the New York Times, Khamenei delegated sweeping military and diplomatic authority to Ali Larijani, his national security chief. Larijani is now running Iran's war preparation. He is coordinating with Russia, China, Qatar, and Oman. He is overseeing nuclear negotiations, and he has already proven he has no hesitation when it comes to using violence to maintain order. This is the same man who orchestrated the January crackdown, the one that, if President Trump's numbers are accurate, left 32,000 people dead. He took direct inspiration from the Tiananmen Square massacre of 1989 and applied those methods to Iran's streets in 2026. But Khamenei didn't stop at delegating power to one man. He went further. He ordered every top official in the regime to name not one, but for replacements for themselves, for layers of succession, for backup commanders in case the first, second, and third get taken out. Think about what that succession order tells you. Iran wasn't preparing for diplomacy. Iran was preparing for decapitation strikes. They watched what happened during the 12-day war when Israel dismantled their top military and nuclear leadership in rapid succession. They are trying to build a regime that survives even if every visible leader is gone overnight. And while Khamenei was preparing for his own potential death, Iran's military was visibly fracturing under the pressure. Mysterious explosions began hitting Iranian military bases, the Imam Ali base near western Iran, another explosion in Tehran province near a suspected underground erg facility with no official explanation from Iranian authorities, just smoke visible from residential areas, just silence from the regime, and then came the moment that revealed just how deep the panic had gone. The Iran's own elite Revolutionary Guard shot down their own F-4 fighter jet. They mistook it for a foreign aircraft. The landing gear was destroyed. The pilot died trying to land. The co-pilot barely survived. That is not a military on the edge of a confident retaliation. That is a military so terrified of incoming strikes that it is shooting at its own shadow. Iran was not sitting still, but everything it was doing carried the fingerprints of desperation rather than strength. They covered nuclear facilities in concrete and soil, building what analysts are calling sarcophagus structures around sites like the Talahanta facility outside Tehran. The idea being that if the bombs can't penetrate deep enough, the program survives, but that strategy only works against conventional munitions. The United States has bunker busters specifically designed for exactly these kinds of hardened targets. They deployed Grad rocket systems to the western borders. They repositioned Russian-built S-300 air defense systems, except satellite imagery raised an immediate question. On multiple images, the radar components appeared to be missing. Military analysts suspect at least some of what Iran is showing the world are decoys, the same kind of inflatable plastic replicas that Russia and Ukraine scatter across their front lines to confuse targeting systems. Real or fake, the message was theater as much as it was strategy. They also released an AI-generated propaganda video showing Iranian missiles targeting U.S. air bases in Jordan, F-35s, refueling tankers, MQ-9 Reaper drones, all rendered in simulation. It was slick. It was also a video game playing against an aircraft carrier battle group, and then there were the protests. Because even as Iran tried to project strength outward, it was bleeding internally. 40 days. In Shia Islam, families gather to mourn their dead after 40 days. It is a sacred cycle, and it is also the cycle that powered the 1979 Iranian Revolution. The same rhythm that brought down the Shah is now ticking again, because we are now 40 days past the January massacre. People are coming out to mourn, and mourning is turning into chanting. Students returned to universities for the new semester, and the discontent was immediate protests erupting across campuses, chants against the regime, chants against Khamenei directly. The regime's response this time was different from December. In December, they waited almost 2 weeks before deploying live ammunition. This time, they opened fire from day one. That tells you everything about how the regime reads its own situation. They are not confident, they are afraid of how fast it can spread, and they are using bullets because they have nothing left that works better. 36,500 protesters have now died demanding change in Iran, according to one estimate. That number, that moral weight, has become part of the American calculus. The Atlantic Council noted it explicitly. The Khamenei regime is at its weakest point in decades. The U.S. has a window for genuine change in Iran that it hasn't had since 1979. That window, as of this morning, may now be open. CNN had already reported it. The White House had been briefed that U.S. military forces were potentially ready to strike as early as February 21st. That date has now passed. The reports coming in this morning describe something consistent with everything that was being assembled. Waves of airstrikes hitting strategic military installations, cyber operations taking down Iranian command and control systems going dark in exactly the pattern you would expect from a coordinated first strike package designed 2 blind air defenses before the jets arrive, and naval forces in the Persian Gulf moving from posture to action, considering past tense now if these reports are accurate. Iranian state media has already responded. They are calling it unprovoked aggression. They are invoking their estimated stockpile of 2,000 ballistic missiles. They are vowing retaliation that is, in their words, decisive and overwhelming. But here is what the analysts were saying even before a single bomb may have dropped. Iran's retaliatory capability is real but limited. The S-300 systems may be decoys. The F-4s are shooting each other down. And the United States, between 2 carrier strike groups, dozens of repositioned air wings, and the combined electronic warfare capability of E-18G Growlers, has likely already been working to map and suppress Iran's response options in real time. The question Preston Stewart raised is now the only question that matters. What is the end game? Is this a targeted strike to collapse the nuclear program, another Operation Midnight Hammer, but larger? Or is the goal what 36,000 dead protesters have been begging the world for: regime change? Because those 2 missions require completely different levels of commitment. The gap between them is the gap between a week of airstrikes and a multi-year war. Regional powers are already moving. Oman, Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, all have issued calls for de-escalation. Russia is watching with existential concern because if the Khamenei regime falls, Putin loses his most important Middle Eastern partner and possibly the strategic leverage that has kept Russia relevant in that region for a decade. Oil markets are already pricing in the uncertainty. And every allied and adversarial government on Earth is now recalibrating its next move based on what is happening in Iranian airspace right now. Here is where we are. The largest U.S. military buildup since the Gulf War was assembled. A supreme leader handed off power and planned for his own assassination. A military shot down its own jet in a panic. 32,000 people were killed in a crackdown that a U.S. president confirmed publicly, the kind of confirmation you make when you are preparing the public for what comes next. And this morning, the reports started coming in. We do not yet have official confirmation, but we have something else. We have every single piece of this story telling us for weeks that this moment was coming. The question was never if, it was only when. If those strikes are real, Iran will never be the same, and neither will the Middle East. We will be tracking every development as it comes in. If you are not subscribed, do it right now, because the next 48 hours may be the most consequential news cycle of the decade. Hit the notification bell, share this video, and we will see you in the next one.